All right, folks. Wow, this is wildly different. It's insane. So as you can see, and I'll show you. We had a spray foam contractor, or really an insulation contractor, come out, and you can see above me, we're all spray foamed, and then against the wall that touches up against the house, we had all sorts of. This is basically mineral wool, acoustical installation. So because the fact that the house has 2x6 walls with fiberglass insulation in it, there's no real need to insulate this wall because it's already, insulated and it's conditioned on the inside. When I say conditioned, I mean we have obviously heating and cooling. Um, so this was basically just to deaden sound transfer, and it's a wild difference. Like, you probably can't hear it, or maybe you even can with the audio, but I can hear how much deadened the sound is in this space because of the insulation. So let me turn it around and kind of show you what's going on. So, as mentioned, all this blocking here is just to put a TV in the future, but we have acoustical insulation here on this wall that butts up against the existing house. So that's great. Then we have all on the 2x6 walls all around the outside of the house here is all full bay spray foam all the way around. And then they also did the entire ceilings with spray foam. Now, this is not designed to be a conditioned space, as in I'm not going to install traditional heating and cooling. I don't really have a lot of options, first of all, anyway. The only real option we could do out here would be like a mini split, some sort of, air, I guess really just a mini split unit of some sort, like a ductless heating system, because one, natural gas isn't an option in the area where I'm at, so it's not like we don't have, I think the nearest natural gas pipe service is about a mile that way, so that's not an option. We don't have like a traditional chimney where you could just install like an existing fireplace, so that's not really like a traditional fireplace. There's not really a good spot out here to try to like do a wood burning stove, and I didn't really design the walls and things to handle like a through pipe for a wood burning stove. It's not really made for that, so I don't want to mess with that. Plus, I'd need to be like cutting holes in the roof. I'm not gonna mess with that. Um, so yeah, basically we do have ductless mini splits are what's heating and cooling the main house. So in theory, you could do that, and I guess you'd probably like put it here above the door, and then that way you could tie into the chases with the existing mini splits. But I'm not planning to do that, and the reason why is currently this is considered a 3-season room or a sunroom, and the meaning behind that is it is not a conditioned space. You can go ahead and put like lights and fans in here, and that's fine. That doesn't count as conditioning. But once you install any type of formal heating or cooling, then you now make this conditioned space. Therefore, it is taxable square footage on your house. And this is not a small room. This is a 16 by 36 room, which means that we would then be taxed on that additional square footage if we were to condition it. So the plan is to just keep it as a 3-season room. As it stands, again, right now, this is our, we've haven't been out here since it's been insulated. And don't get me wrong, there's also going to be additional, insulation in the form of drywall going up over this. Now, drywall doesn't add a ton of insulation, but it adds some. So you'll have, a layer of 1/2-inch drywall all over everywhere. And then I'm going to do, like, beadboard wainscoting down on the bottom half underneath all the windows. Again, that's not really going to add much in the way of insulation, but it'll be there. And then obviously the floor, right? We're going to put out an underlayment and then luxury vinyl plank. So one thing I didn't go over in any of my previous is you can see how I have this OSB floor down. Well, underneath that, this is all going this way. Underneath that going this way, for the basis of this was all 3/4-inch pressure treated plywood, and that was the base of the deck. And then now I have 7/16 of an inch OSB going the opposite direction. One, to just add additional stability, but we actually needed to raise the floor up to kind of come up to, as you can see, like here under the door, it was much lower, so we needed to add material to raise it up, and then a layer of underlayment, and then the vinyl plank. So the good news is we do have a pretty well-sealed floor system. Like, I did a pretty good job on marrying up all the seams, so there's essentially almost no gap. So between this and the existing flooring going the other direction, you basically have a really tight floor system. That's the only place currently that like any kind of cold air would come in to cause anything would be up through the floor, because again, underneath here, it's just all of the joists and all of the support beams and then, dirt. So potentially that's where any kind of cold air would come from, would be seeping up through the floor, which is also why the spray foam contractors were saying, hey, we can crawl underneath there, like treat it like a crawl space, and then insulate underneath the floor. And that's an option, but they even told me that even if I step out here in the wintertime, the floor is still going to be cold. Like, insulating under the floor isn't going to make the floors warmer. It will just kind of fully encapsulate the space, and you won't have to worry about any like drafty air coming up from underneath. But I think the fact that I've got dual layers of flooring down, plus going to be rolling out some form of underlayment, and then putting the luxury vinyl plank, which all locks together on top of this, that I'm probably going to have a pretty solid floor system with not a lot of room for airflow to make its way up. I tried to do a pretty good job sealing everything. And I may even tape down the seams that you saw between this OSB to just add another layer of protection. Just put a piece of tape over all of them before we even throw the underlayment down. So as far as, again, the wintertime, we've never, with it insulated and with everything kind of finished off, it's obviously the springtime now. We don't know how cold it's going to get. It actually might be pretty okay out here even in the wintertime. These are all good high-efficiency windows, so potentially we might not have a lot of air leakage into this room for cold air. It'll obviously be colder because it's the outside walls, but honestly, some of the insulation here is almost better than the insulation inside because it's all the spray foam. So who knows? And I guess, in theory, I could open like this window, and then some of the heat from the inside would transfer out into this room. That's not like super efficient for the rest of the house, but it is an option that I could do so that, the little bit of heat that would come in here would come in and then hopefully stay because of how well encapsulated things are. So it might not even need any kind of traditional heating. Now, as far as furniture and stuff that we're going to put out here, there had been talks when it was going to be like a more open area that we were going to do like a fireplace table. I don't think I could really do like an open fireplace table in an encapsulated space. That seems like a bad idea. But, we'll figure something out if need be. But I truly think it might just be okay with just the insulation. And like, honestly, you get a lot of people out here talking. If you get some electronics and stuff out here, it generates sort of ambient heat. We might be fine as it is without anything. So really, now, for me, the next steps are ordering drywall to start drywalling everything. And then, obviously, the fundamentals that follow up with drywall: spackling, tape, sanding, painting. Flooring. Obviously, I could terminate all the electrical wires and things once we kind of get the sheetrock up. And then it's final inspection. Make sure everything's wired properly into the panel and all that good stuff. And then it's decorating. So we're in the end game now. I've got till August before my permit expires, which I think we're well within time frame to get everything done. I think the drywall, I'm going to get myself a drywall lift. I've got, like I've said before, pretty easy access to just bring everything in through these double doors. I can just start stacking up the drywall. And honestly, all of these walls and up to the top of that double top plate is all just 8 feet. So I can just stack probably all my drywall if I want to vertically and just go across minimal joints to tape and sand. And then I'll obviously have to cut little pieces, up here and over here. And then I'll probably, I'm assuming, do these walls as just traditional, go horizontally with it, stack it up and stagger the joints and whatnot. But yeah, like I said, I know this content isn't for everyone, but people are interested to see what's going on. And, I think that everybody just also seems really interested in all the kind of stuff that I do with my life. outside of just what you see as my general aspect here on Nerd Immersion. So, feel free again to like I said, I'm not a licensed contractor. I'm just a guy who's really handy, who's been doing a lot of stuff, and I'm also not afraid to take a risk and try something. I'm willing to try anything once. You give me a manual, and I'm usually good to go. So I'm willing to try electrical, plumbing, framing, all this kind of stuff. And like I said, I have no formal training. I just had a blue collar dad who taught me essentially a lot of almost everything I know growing up, working on our house, fixing it, doing things like that. We did a ton of this stuff growing up. So it's second nature to me in a lot of ways, but I've also taken what I know leaps and bounds beyond what my dad taught me by watching a bunch of awesome YouTube channels that do this kind of stuff or reading all the code books and things like that. So while I am not licensed in any way and am not at a point where I can truly give you formal advice, I can probably answer a lot of your questions about this kind of stuff. So, if you do have questions about anything that I'm doing in this room or maybe something general about what's going on with your place or something, you can feel free to leave it in the comments. Again, take my great advice with a grain of salt because I don't know what the codes are and things in your area. But by all means, I love this kind of stuff. While while it probably took a lot longer than it would take to hire a contractor to do it, and it probably has frustrated my wife a little bit about how long this is taking, considering we're coming up on 2 years since I started this project. I do genuinely enjoy it. It does give me joy, and the fact that every time I walk out here, I'm slightly marveled at the fact that, like, I did this. This was all me, right? Like, there was nothing here, and then I built a fucking room. It's just crazy. So, anyway, thank you all for coming along on this journey with me and allowing me to make these silly videos about it. I appreciate all of you, and I'll see you next time.